everybody. Welcome once again to JOF TV. My name is Chuck. With me, as usual, is my co-host, Scylla. Say hi, Scylla.
Howdy.
How y'all doing?
I'm doing
Why
good.
are we yelling? I don't know. So it is time once again to talk about television. That's our favorite pastime, let's face it. We love TV. We especially love the fall season because that's when all the new shit comes around. So in anticipation of the fall season, I've gotten caught up on a couple of shows, finally. And we talked about Arrow in the last episode, and this time we're going to talk about Once Upon a Time.
Which I've been very much looking forward to.
Right.
Because I've been watching it for a season now, because last season I did what you did. This season, except you had one more season than I did, I watched the first two seasons in anticipation for the third. Started watching the third, so now I've been watching it for a season.
Right.
And this year you went and watched all three seasons, and now starting the fourth.
Had a week off, decided to do a little staycation, and just out of curiosity, the Sunday, the day that the fourth season premiere aired, earlier that day, after football, I was like, I'm gonna try this and just see if it's, because I watched the first two episodes when it first went on the air. I watched them and was like, I'm bored. So I went back and I watched them, and they are just as boring as I remember them. But I said, okay, everybody loves this show, so I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna give it some more episodes and see if it got better. And I just didn't realize it was gonna get better. And boy, howdy did it! It's a good show.
I'm not so,
it was a slow start, but it was a good show.
Given how you like alternate takes on fairy tales, I'm not surprised that you love it as much as I do.
Right, I love it. I absolutely do. Their take on some of these classic characters, and I love that they're taking the Disney version of some of these classic characters, like Beauty and the Beast and Snow White, Cinderella, what have you. But they're also taking Grimm characters that they haven't done on Disney yet. They're mixing it all up and doing it to go like,
so
it's like playing Yahtzee.
So I think that's probably the best way to discuss the show. Let's take it story by story.
Okay.
Starting with the story that kind of overarches everything, Snow White.
Right, Snow White and the Evil Queen.
Right.
They are, interestingly enough, they are the central focus of the show. You've got the Evil Queen, Snow White and Prince Charming, and everything kind of spawns out from them. Mm-hmm. Because what happened was, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it by now, you should have. So,
and unlike in the previous, you've seen some of this season already, right?
I have. I've seen. I didn't see last night's.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
So we're in the same spot. So you may get some spoilers for this season.
Just a little.
So be aware, but we are going to talk about the whole series.
Yeah. So anyway, so the whole thing starts off with Snow White and Prince Charming have won the day. They've reclaimed their kingdom. The Evil Queen, who is given a name, Regina, goes batshit crazy and casts a curse that takes all the characters from the Enchanted Forest, as they're calling their particular realm, and throws them into our world with no magic.
And no memory of who they are.
And no memory of who they are.
Which thankfully doesn't last long, because that would have gotten old fast.
Yeah. And they live out the next 28 years in an isolated town called Storybrooke, Maine, and every day is the same day. I find that to be interesting. That isn't clearly stated, but it's suggested early on. But at one point during the I think it's the third season, they finally do show, yes, it's the same day over and over. They have same conversations. They're doing the same thing, wearing the same clothes.
Which I find odd, considering that a little boy grew up there. Right.
That's a little weird. He's the only one that changes. Of the entire town, Henry is the only one that changes. So anyway, so to break the curse, they did find out right before the curse gets casted, the only person that will be able to break the curse is the child of Snow White and Prince Charming. So they make a plan to secret the child and Snow away before the curse can get cast. Unfortunately, Snow has the baby as the curse is being cast, so they can't escape together. The baby has to be sent without Snow. And so it was a tough decision that they had to make. But they sent the child into our world to grow up, not knowing who her parents were. She's completely orphaned, whatever. She grows up, has a child of her own, who then she gives the child up for adoption. He gets adopted by the evil queen. She is the only one in town who retains her memories. That's part of the curse. She knows who she is.
Not the only one.
The people that got hit by the curse. She's the only one. Everybody else forgets who they are. You're thinking of Rumple, I assume. Rumple regains his.
He seemed to know.
But if you look at the episode where the one that's actually called Welcome to Storybrooke, I think it's in third season. That's the one I'm talking about where it shows every day is the same. She goes and talks to Rumple, and he has no idea what the hell she's talking about. He doesn't have his memories at that time. It does seem that throughout the 28 years, he eventually gains a good bit of his back. But anyway, when the curse first gets cast, she does not know, or she is the only one who seems to know who she is. Anyway, so she ends up adopting because she's found that she has a hole in her life. She ends up adopting this child who she doesn't realize at the time is the grandson of Snow White and Prince Charming.
Right.
And so when he becomes like 10 or 11, he goes on his birth mother's 28th birthday to go find her and bring her to Storybrooke to release the curse. And that's where the show starts.
Because he's figured all this out.
Yeah, somehow he's smart enough and observant enough to figure out that all these characters are real and they're all living in Storybrooke, Maine and don't know who the hell they are.
So now that we know the premise of the story,
right?
What do you think of the changes to the fairy tale, starting with Snow White? She's not the damsel in distress.
Thank God.
Let's face it, the Disney movie, Snow has really no role except running off into the forest.
Right. She's not the hero. She's
taking care of the dwarves and then eating a poison apple. That is what Snow does in that movie.
Right. She's not the hero. She's the victim.
And this Snow is... While she does need the prince to kiss her and wake her up because she eats the apple, and which I actually like. I like the fact that she's not just a straight up hero. They save each other. I love that. And
the motivation for eating the apple is different. She's not just some dumb broad who goes, "Oh, free apple, chomp." No, she knew what the apple would do. They actually show that she chooses,
right?
Because she does it as a sacrifice to save the ones she loves,
right?
The dwarves, Charming, whoever. And yes, she needs Charming to come along and save her, but she's not a damsel in distress. But she's a badass.
There are just as many times she saves him.
Right.
Which I like, because I have no issue with a damsel in distress character, and I've said this before. I like it when... I think it's romantic when a man comes and saves his princess. But I also think it's awesome when the princess can save the prince.
Right.
I love it when it goes both ways, and it certainly does in that relationship. And I know that this has nothing to do with the show itself, but the fact that those two actors fell in love and got married in real life and had a kid kind of just, I think, just adds to their chemistry on screen.
Yeah, I love the fact that, and obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but at the end of last year, she's pregnant on the show because the actress is actually pregnant
with his child.
So Snow and Charming have a child on the show, while the actors playing Snow and Charming are also married and having a child,
which is,
I think that's just cool.
It is very cool. But I do love the changes to the Snow White story, because Snow White has never been one of my favorite Disney princesses. And I do like the changes to her.
Absolutely. Making her a badass is definitely a good thing. Overall, I'll say this just at the outset. Overall, I think all the changes that they've done, I've liked. There are minor things that have tweaked me.
My favorite one, and I want to address this one specifically, is Beauty and the Beast.
See, now that's one, I like the storyline. I like the way they've written it. But you and I have discussed this. I don't like that actress, and that's just me. I don't personally like her as an actress.
Right, you don't like the actress for Belle. I thought Belle was very well cast. But even more, Rumpelstiltskin is a major character on the show and one we've never seen in Disney.
Right.
But they found a way to make him fit into Disney-ish roles. Nevertheless, they
Right.
had Rumple as the Beast in Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
He's Belle's love.
He's also Crocodile.
He is the crocodile that eats
that
Captain Hook's
takes
hand.
Hook's hand. Yeah. Instead of eating it, he slices it off.
And I love that Rumple is both the Beast and the crocodile.
Right.
I love Rumpelstiltskin anyway, in both roles. And obviously, great compliment to the actor. There is a very big difference between Rumple and Mr. Gold. When he's Rumple in the Enchanted Forest,
There
kind
are-
of this flamboyant, these movements, the way certain inflections in his voice. Whereas after the curse, when he's Mr. Gold in Storybrooke, obviously he looks different. The makeup's not there, but the way he carries himself and talks is different.
Right.
And it's very distinguishable difference that works very, very well.
I've noticed 3 sides to his personality. 3 distinct versions of Rumple. So you've got Rumpelstiltskin, who was the man, who had a wife, had a son. He had a wife, was called off to war right as she got pregnant. He fears that he will never be able to return home alive to see his son grow up, does not want to leave his son without a father because of issues he had as a child. So he takes a cowardly act, wounds himself so he can get sent home, which leads to the destruction of his family because his wife can't stand to be around him and goes searching for love elsewhere and falls in love with someone else, and that's a whole nother story. His son eventually leaves him after some bad choices that Rumple makes, and just that one decision, that one cowardly act to leave the battlefield in a coward's way leads to the destruction of his family. So you have that Rumple. Mm-hmm. Then you have Rumple after he
The Dark One
becomes the Dark One. Basically, there's a character called the Dark One who is controlled by a knife. Whoever holds the knife controls the Dark One. If you kill the Dark One with that knife, and it's the only way to kill him, if you kill him with his own knife, you absorb the power. So Rumple goes to capture the knife, thinking he's going to control the Dark One to protect his son from being called to the same war that he left as a coward. It's like 11 years or 14 years later. But instead of just controlling the Dark One, he makes the decision to kill the Dark One and become the new Dark One. Mm-hmm. And he uses his powers to protect his son, but to terrorize his neighbors and
basically
the
get
soldiers.
revenge.
Yeah, he gets revenge. He abuses the power, which, let's face it, he's called the Dark One for a reason.
What do you expect?
So that power corrupts him, and it's what eventually drives Bale to leave him.
And it's
his son.
very distinguishable from the other sides of the character.
Completely. Very, and it's like you were saying, very flamboyant. His movements. He does things like this. And one of my favorite things that he does is magic always has a price, because he goes, magic always has a price. And the way he does that, and he does it every time he talks about that, it just makes me smile a little bit.
Me too.
Because it's a great delivery. And then, like you said, there's that third character, the Mr. Gold character. The Mr. Gold being Rumple in our world without magic and things like that. And he's not as flamboyant. He's sinister. Mm-hmm. He's clearly the mob boss of the town. He is the seedy underbelly of Storybrooke.
Right.
And it's a great character.
And then once the curse gets broken, I think he does a very good job of continuing with the Mr. Gold character with just hints of Rumple.
Right. You see hints of the old Dark One Rumpelstiltskin coming out a little bit. But the nice thing about Belle is because, again, this is Beauty and the Beast we're talking about. So he's the Beast, she's Belle. They're going to fall in love. That's the concept. Belle brings out that earlier Rumple. She brings out a softer side to him. That Rumple that can love and
because he
love.
does truly love Belle.
Yes,
that's clearly
she's
shown.
the second great love of his life. Because he loved his first wife so much that it broke his heart when she left him, and again, sort of led to him becoming the Dark One, and it's why it's what also ends up to her ultimate demise. And Belle. He kind of walls himself away after Belle leaves and all that. So when Belle comes along, she breaks down that wall and opens him up to love again. And he does. He falls for Belle and truly loves her.
And I love...
Makes really dumb decisions, but he loves her.
Yes. And I love certain aspects of the story, like the chipped teacup, which is obviously a throwback to
Chip and Mrs. Potts, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you even see the pot. You know, you've got Mrs. Potts, you've got Chip. The chipped cup is a nice little nod to that.
So there's little things in there. Then there is... we haven't seen as much of it as I would have liked, but we do see Princess Aurora, who I also don't like. That's one of the princesses I don't like the casting of.
See, and I'm okay with it. I think they casted her just fine.
We disagree on he doesn't like the casting of Belle, which I love.
Right.
I don't like the casting of Aurora, which he's fine with. So we disagree.
What I don't like about Aurora is that she is the quintessential damsel in distress. She is useless in this show.
She really is.
All she does is get in trouble and have to be rescued.
But Prince Philip is also dumb as a bag of rocks.
He is kind of.
Which I hate because, and I'm sure I've said this before, Aurora has always been my favorite Disney princess. And by extension, Philip, my favorite Disney prince. Like, Sleeping Beauty is my favorite Disney movie of all time. So they are actually the reason I started watching the show. I wanted to see a live-action version of Aurora and Philip. That is the reason I started watching the show. And to that extent, it was a great letdown. Because this is not a good live-action adaptation of them at all.
And like I said, the fact that they made her a victim, she's nothing more than a victim. She is the Aurora from the movie, because she's not. That's all she is in Sleeping Beauty. She's just a victim, just like Snow White.
She's pretty.
Whatever. This one's pretty too. My problem with it.
I don't like the fact they made all the other princesses strong and not her.
Yeah. My problem with my biggest problem with the whole Aurora Philip thing is, where the hell did Philip come back from? We see Philip get sucked up by the Wraith. We see Mulan and Aurora, which that's another thing. I love that they included Mulan into their story. I love the actress that they picked for Mulan.
That was well cast. I will agree with that.
She's doing a fantastic job. And I love the little love triangle that they're building there. But and we're going to talk about that again in a moment, because I want to come back to that. But anyway,
okay. It caused a lot of outrage. We kind of got to touch on it.
They go off together to go find Philip. The next time we see those characters, Philip's back.
I figure that's something they'll touch on at some point. You know how they like to jump around in time.
They do like to jump around in time, but goddamn, it was a year ago that they showed that. I would think that they would have hit on it already.
You would think.
Leading up to, because we see them in the leading up to the Wicked Witch storyline, and they're part of that. So by that time, they've already found Philip, and they don't really explain how they found him. Yeah, where'd he come from?
Just Aurora's having a baby, and Philip is there, and they're one big, almost happy family.
Right. Now, so let's talk about a little bit about the love triangle with them. So it's clear when we first meet Aurora, Philip, and Mulan, that Mulan and Philip, having been looking for Aurora, form a very close bond, and Mulan falls in love with Philip.
Right.
And there appears to be some mutual attraction, but he still loves Aurora more.
Right.
That's his love. he cares for Mulan, but
He's
loves,
in love with Aurora.
Yeah. So they show that. What I find interesting is that later, after Mulan it comes into contact with Robin Hood, she decides that she needs to tell someone that she loves them.
And it's not Philip.
And it's not Philip. Okay, so I'm not the only one who saw that. It looked like Mulan. I guess the implication there was that when Mulan was helping Aurora find Philip, she fell in love with Aurora. So she actually loves them both, and was about to tell Aurora that I love you. And then Aurora's like, "Oh, me first. I'm pregnant."
And
Oh, so nice for you. I'm gonna go join Robin Hood. I need to be away from this.
yeah.
And I think that was interesting.
It caused a lot of outrage.
Really?
The concept of making a Disney princess be a lesbian did cause some outrage.
I wonder if that's maybe why they haven't revisited that yet.
I don't know.
Or if they never really intended to come back to that.
For me, it was kind of one of those things, oh, cool. Yes, it was a surprise reveal for the character, but I didn't think about it as more than that.
The only thing that I find it interesting is that, we see her at one point, the first time we see her, she clearly loves Philip. I mean, to the point that, I forget if it was Snow or Emma that noticed it, but it's obvious to an outsider looking in.
Right.
Then a year later, we see that she has decided she appears to have decided that she loves Aurora. Now, it could be, because again, this is all implied. None of it's flat out stated. It could be that what she was actually trying to say was, I didn't want to talk to Philip because I wanted to tell you first. I'm in love with Philip. That could be what she was about to do. But
that's not what
that's
not what anybody took it as.
Right. But as a hero, I'm not going to stand in your way now that I know that you're pregnant. So I'm curious if that's where they were actually suggesting that it was going, and then everybody just read it wrong. I haven't looked to see if the producers have backtracked and said, no, this is what we meant. I haven't looked. But I think it would be interesting if that's what their original intention was, and then everybody took it the other way, and they went, fuck it. Leave it like that.
I think that everyone made too big an issue of it.
If there was an issue made of it, like a how dare they kind of issue, then yes, you're right. They'd made too big of an issue.
And there was.
Because they always do.
There were, and on both sides, there were some people going, yay, and there were other people going, hey. And I was going, yeah, cool.
And I went, all right. And again, because I had just watched it.
I see it as a non-issue either way.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And that's one of those things that when you power through something, you kind of catch those little things, and you start to go, wait a minute. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, because there's something else that stuck in my craw. But overall,
the other main thing I want to touch on, I know we're running out of time, but actually two things, and one's very brief. But Neverland cost them some viewership. And
I don't get it. I don't see why that would cost some viewership. I think it was a great storyline.
I felt like it was dragged out too long personally. Once they actually led up to the big reveal about who Peter Pan was, I loved it.
Right.
It took too long to get there.
See, and I think I think the pacing was fine. I think that if they had spent an entire year dealing with Neverland, that would have been too much. But the fact that they essentially broke third season into 2 seasons.
Right.
You have your Neverland storyline and then your Wicked Witch storyline. That's essentially while it is all one season, it's essentially separated, and I assume separated by the winter finale.
It was. Yeah. Indeed.
So those two parts of that season, I think, worked well independently.
But again, you watched it all back to back. You weren't waiting week after week after week for it.
That's true, and that's definitely something I have a different perspective because of that, because I powered right through it. Now you may also think that it took so long because you powered through the first two seasons and then immediately stepped into this long ass Neverland story.
Well, I wasn't the only one that felt that way.
Oh, okay.
I would have thought that, except I talked to other fans who felt the same way I did.
Okay.
It's something that we all felt should have been wrapped up in about 4 episodes, and they just kept dragging it out.
Right. It took 10 episodes, something like that?
It was too much. Now, again, once you start getting to the reveal, it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. Okay, I like where they're going with this. It took too long to get there, and people tuned out.
Yeah. To their credit, I didn't figure out exactly what they were trying to do. I had caught on to Peter being Rumpel's father, and that's and again, if you haven't seen it, Peter Pan number one was written as a villain,
which I love because Peter Pan always creeped me out.
Yeah. His Lost Boys are sinister. They're somewhat they're not evil, but he definitely is.
And they do his bidding because they follow him.
Right, because he's got the power. And then
he controls them with fear, though.
He does. And then Peter became Peter Pan after an adult father abandons his son. He basically Rumpelstiltskin's father and Rumpel, when he's about 10 or 11 ish, find a way to Neverland, and he's trying to recapture his youth that he feels Rumpel stole from him by being born. So he's trying to recapture that youth, that carefree existence, and in order to do that, he has to give up his son and abandon his son to the world, basically. So he does. He makes that choice easily. He doesn't even think about it. He's just like,
okay,
fuck you. I didn't want a kid anyway. I'm Peter Pan. Renames himself Peter Pan and becomes that eternal boy. And then centuries pass, and he's trying to find a way to make his change permanent, because he's got a limited amount of time. They reveal that he only has a certain amount of time before it's over. To their credit, I didn't have the whole thing figured out. I had figured out that he was the dad about 30 minutes before they revealed it. So they got me right up until the end. And then the rest of the storyline, once we knew who he was, I was like, wow, what a great way to go. Mm-hmm. They really did make it a good twist. You may be right. It may have been a bit long, but that, again, it's hard for me to say because I powered through them so quickly.
Right.
The Tinkerbell part of it and showing where she came from, how she ended up in Neverland and all that, I think was also kind of interesting.
And great casting on Tinkerbell, too.
Yes. I think they made a perfect choice in casting for Tinkerbell.
Yes. And we also got to meet Ariel in that season. Great casting for Ariel.
My favorite of all. I will say that. So far, of all the casting they've done, having Joanna Garcia, whatever her last name now is, because I know it's Joanna Garcia something.
Right.
Having her as Ariel was beautiful casting.
Mm-hmm.
She is a lovely, lovely young lady to begin with. That flame red hair really works on her. And I think that...
And she does a good... Ariel, because the whole thing of Ariel is she's a mermaid that basically is a foreigner on land.
Right.
She plays that well.
And she's always had that kind of brassy attitude that Ariel also needs to have. Mm-hmm. And so I think they did it... So far, that's my favorite casting. As far as look and attitude. As the girl that's playing Elsa in the new season, she also looks pretty good. They did a good job of nailing the look.
And I want to touch on that. We are hitting Frozen, which I knew it was just a matter of time.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen, but I did get that what they're showing us in the series is post Frozen.
Right.
It's the events of Frozen happened.
Yes, basically they started off right after the movie.
Right.
And Well, I haven't seen this week's. Have you seen the preview for this week's?
The only thing I've seen is who the actress is, and it's yet another Lost alum. Man, there's a lot of Lost alums in this.
Well,
in this show.
they're the ones behind Lost, so. I like the direction that they're taking the Frozen storyline, and since it is something that's ongoing, I won't give too much away, and we'll get into specifics in a few weeks after some of it's played out. But if they're doing what I think they're doing, I love it. I was very skeptical about them going the Frozen route because it is such a new film and a new take on that particular fairy tale. But if they're doing what I think they're doing, it's perfect, and is exactly the way I would have written it.
Now, have you seen Frozen?
I have.
Okay.
I
I haven't. I need to watch Frozen just so I know what's going on there. I realize it's not one of the better Disney films, I've been told.
I'm a babysitter. I watched it twice in a row.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. Aladdin's the only movie you should ever have to watch twice in a row.
But,
Make way.
yeah, I had never seen it until I went to babysit for my favorite little girl, or one of my favorite little girls, and she was Frozen. You want Frozen? Yes. Okay. Again! Oh. Okay.
The young lady and her son that lived across the way for a while, right after How to Train Your Dragon came out, he was like that with that one. I sat, because I kept an eye on him a couple of times, and I sat through How to Train Your Dragon a couple of times because of that.
Frozen is one of those things that I know that it's all the rage right now. I think it's overhyped, but
now you have to back up and think about how Disney films are usually overhyped, because when Aladdin came out, it was the exact same way. It was a cultural phenomenon.
But we haven't seen...
Same with Beauty and the Beast. Same with
but not
Little
recent.
Mermaid.
But not recently. Look at Tangled. Look at...
they did have kind of a...
Princess and the Frog.
There was like a golden age, or a re-golden age, I guess, a second coming of Disney in the 90s. And then it went... And now it's coming back up.
And so we haven't seen something like this.
I think Princess and the Frog was the least accepted so far.
And I think that's what gets me on Frozen, is I think Tangled was better as far as recent Disney films go. I like Tangled better.
Tangled was a pretty good film.
I like Tangled better than I liked Frozen, and Frozen got way more hype than Tangled did.
Yeah, and you see the same thing with the characters on the show. The Frozen characters, specifically Elsa, that's going to be an ongoing storyline for several episodes at least. Rapunzel got 5 minutes.
And after all of that hoopla and drama about the Rapunzel casting, it turned into a throwaway storyline.
Yeah, it really was. She was a complete throwaway character. They did nothing with her.
More useless than Aurora.
The only purpose that she served was to show how charming was going to be, or David was going to be able to defeat the shadow, essentially.
But I do like what they're doing with the Frozen storyline so far. And if you want me to tell you what after the show, I'll be more specific. But it is exactly the way I would have written it, and that's always fun.
It's always kind of nice to go, yep, that's how I'd have done it.
Right.
Because it shows that you're on the same wavelength with the creators,
mm-hmm.
And you're going to enjoy what they're doing.
Right. So it is on ABC Sunday nights.
Yep.
If you haven't watched it yet, you can catch all the previous seasons on Netflix, and definitely worth a watch if you love fairy tales or Disney princesses, which is the real reason I started watching it. I do love Disney princesses, and this, while I would say it qualifies as a family show, it's definitely not a kid show.
Yeah, it's not
something
solely a kid's show. It's something the entire family can appreciate.
Right, adults can enjoy it just, if not more, just as much. So
overall, like I said, overall it's a great show. And I want to talk about this briefly. My only real problem, plot-wise, is the at least my perceived plot hole with Cora being Regina's mother. Some of the way that they have presented it doesn't make sense because of it. To me, it's clear that Regina's father, her birth father, is not a prince. But it also clearly shows that Cora marries a prince and gives birth to Regina. It's as if there are two fathers, and they haven't explained that to me to my satisfaction yet. And that's one problem I have with it. The concept that so basically, if Regina's father, who is named Henry, if he is a prince, he is the brother of Snow White's father. That's how they presented it. And if he's the brother of Snow White's father, that makes Regina Snow White's father's direct niece. Not several times removed or anything like that. She is the daughter of his brother. He never would have married her as a stepmother to Snow. It also suggested that he had never met Cora and Snow White, or Cora and Regina, prior to Regina saving Snow. And that can't be true if Regina's father is his brother. So to me, it's a gaping plot hole. Mm-hmm. It's something that they have not yet explained to my satisfaction.
Fair enough.
So anyway,
okay,
that's all I had to say about that.
All right,
anyway,
but overall, good show.
Overall, it is a good show. They any show is going to have weird plot holes that aren't neatly sewn up. Especially when you have a show that's going to run for a while, because they change their minds about direction they want to go in, and sometimes it creates a inconsistency that they hope can be glossed over. Since I powered through 3 seasons in a week, it was more obvious to me.
Right.
So, if you haven't been watching Once Upon a Time, now's a good time to get caught up. Like you said, all 3 seasons are on Netflix, and it just started its 4th season on ABC. So,
Sunday nights.
Enjoy. Stay tuned. We've got more TV topics coming. We're going to talk more about Arrow and Flash in upcoming episodes.
We are.
We're also going to talk about some of the other shows that are on right now that are not necessarily comic related or fairy tale related in this case. Just shows that we're keeping an eye on. And eventually we're going to talk about once the season is done, we're going to talk about this current season of Doctor Who as a whole. So we'll also have various other topics that aren't anything related to do with TV or comic books, because that's the way we roll.
Very eclectic
stay
bunch.
tuned. Jackaload'sFire.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, we're everywhere.
We are everywhere.
We're like a virus.
You cannot
fluffier.
You cannot escape the Jackalope.
Until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye.